I'm gonna take you for the ride of your life.
Hey guys, and hello gorgeous. Welcome back to another Patreon Hangouts cartoon commentary. Today we're going to be taking a look at part 2 of G1 Transformers More Than Meets the Eye, part 2. Joining me once again is Adam Burkett. Adam, how you doing tonight?
I'm great, thank you.
We did pretty good on the first one. That one was a breeze.
Yeah, I had fun. I hope we can get more of the Patreon subscribers on to us with next time.
Yeah, so if you're a $2 or more supporter of the channel on Patreon, that is a rank of Sergeant or higher. You get top secret clearance to future Patreon Hangouts where you can join us on Skype for classic cartoon commentaries. So yeah, definitely hit us up on the Patreon site. Or send me a message on Patreon, let me know your availability, and we will be taking a look at more Transformers, G.I. Joe, He-Man, Mask, Brave Star. There is a wealth of classic cartoons which we can hang out and chat about. So today we're taking a look at part 2 of More Than Meets the Eye. We've both got our DVDs queued up here, Adam and I'm going to give you the standard countdown from 3. It's going to be 3, 2, 1, and play. 3, 2, 1, play. Everybody ready?
Ready.
3, 2, 1, play. And that classic G1 year 1 intro starts again. They changed the theme a bit in the second year and the third year. And the first one I still get the most nostalgia for, because it just sounds the most, some people might say cheesy, but I think it captures the feeling of the 80s, just a happier time, even though it's a little bit of a kind of a melancholy theme compared to other 80s cartoons. It's got a little happier beat than the other more serious seasons.
It does have that little weird key that makes it sound melancholy, like you said. I remember the lion theme from the movie. That is my Transformers theme.
Wonderful. The whole soundtrack to the movie, and I'm looking forward to doing the movie on a future Patreon Hangout. I still listen to that soundtrack regularly to this day. It's right up there with Tron Legacy as one of my favorite movie soundtracks of all time. So last episode ended off with the Autobots not really winning the day. I had mentioned how they kind of had met their match in the Decepticons, if not met their superiors. And the last episode ended on a cliffhanger with Optimus not being able to raise up this rig here. And it looks like everything is going to be okay here.
Thanks to the flying Autobots.
Yeah, that's something that they retconned a little later. But I like this show of teamwork here. They are a team. The Decepticons are treacherous and backstabbing. I love that the Autobots are working together, and that they're featuring the Autobots' unique talents, which they maintain continuity. It's not like Jazz can have a grappling hook and 50 other things that are necessary for whatever situation he's in. He's got the grappling hook, and he uses it frequently throughout the rest of the show, and Trailbreaker is famous for, "You need a force field!" He busts that out every time he can. So it's cool that some of the unique traits of each Autobot are being featured so far.
Yeah, they're going to show those a lot this episode, which is great.
Little chat between Sparkplug and Spike and Optimus. And this is an important part of the episode, integrating the humans into the story.
Yeah, how do you like the kind of token human boy in the 80s cartoons?
I think this works great because he doesn't steal the thunder. They do it so often in cartoons and even in more recent remakes. Here's some great espionage by Soundwave here, and that's mass shifting, which we mentioned in the previous commentary. Soundwave's able to shrink down. But they're kind of inconsequential, if not the damsels in distress. I like that they're not, to borrow a modern term, Gary Stews or Mary Sues. They really are useless. And the Autobots, they have some tidbits of information to help the Autobots integrate, with Earth, but for the most part, they're useless, and they're more of a hindrance than a help. So I think that they're used exactly the way they should be used in this episode. They're like they're kind of our conduit to be blown away by these Autobots. This is just the same old routine for the Autobots, but you need that human going, wow! Looking at, and again, we've got some of these special powers. Hound has hologram, Mirage can disappear, and these are gimmicks that will be repeated throughout the show. But I like how the humans are used, especially Spike. They don't let him be Superboy. What do you think?
Yeah, I definitely agree. I don't like when you have to have every episode revolve around the human and he comes and saves the day and they're best friends. And yeah, like you said, he's very sparingly used. It's a lot better that way.
I feel like they had to use the humans a lot more in the Michael Bay movies just for budgetary reasons, because every minute a human's on screen, that's 1 minute of Transformers they don't have to animate, which is very costly. But in this old style animation, it doesn't matter whether it's a human on the screen or a Transformer. So it's done right here.
And when you're watching these, you often think about some of the shots from the movies too, how they flash back to these shows.
It's really important too to have the humans in, because to differentiate the Autobots from the Decepticons, they're both soldiers, warring parties, but it's the humans that show us the Autobots' compassion and empathy and fun too. Because the Autobots, if it was just them with themselves, sometimes they tend to bicker or just behave like old soldiers wary from a war. And it's the humans that allow them to let their hair down or take their Cybertronian helmets off, or whatever the expression would be for Autobots.
Speaking of compassion, that part back there when Soundwave yelled for Ravage, I always thought that was interesting.
Mm-hmm.
Because he's a robot and he's very mechanical and methodical, and here he is screaming for his friend, basically.
Yeah, the Decepticons don't, I was going to say generally don't, but they just flat out don't care about each other. There's really no exceptions to that. They don't care about each other, but Soundwave does have a connection with his cassettes. It's very similar to Optimus and his components, the trailer and roller, especially roller. Mm-hmm. I always saw Soundwave's cassettes being like Optimus's roller. It's a piece of him, not just a drone. And so I don't know if it's intended to be like a father with a child, or if it's more of, that's me, so don't hurt me. Maybe he's able to feel, even though it's never really addressed in the show, maybe he feels what his cassettes feel, or damage to the cassettes threatens him in some way.
Yeah, that's real.
Love Rumble here. He's little, but he can cause a lot of damage. And of course, for those who aren't familiar with Transformers, there's always been a confusion between who's Rumble and who's Frenzy. On the cartoon, Rumble is purple, Frenzy is black and red, but the toys are actually reversed. So it's an example of, I mentioned in the first commentary, sometimes these writers didn't know who these people were and got them confused. One example of that actually on the boxes, if you read the tech specs bio for Sunstreaker and Sideswipe, I always thought they confused the two. They mixed the two up. So, it's 18 Autobots, and there's a couple examples of them not being able to keep them straight.
Yeah, it makes sense. There's way too many characters.
It's good old Sherman Dam. One of my favorite fights of any Transformers episode is the iconic battle between Megatron and Optimus atop Sherman Dam. And here's some interaction of the Decepticons with the humans, and you get a very different interaction here. This again, the humans allow some characterization of the Decepticons, and because they're so useless, when the Autobots are nice to them and humor them, that makes them seem so much more heroic. And when you get the same useless humans around the Decepticons who want to bully them and stomp on them, it makes them even more dastardly.
I always like the funky science and physics that they use in these old cartoons. We're going to cause a tidal wave to increase the output of the dam.
Yeah, and it doesn't have to make sense, but if you're not Bill Nye, if you're not a physics major, it might work. In passing, it seems like, yeah, that could work, right?
Yeah, for a child, it works too.
And Megatron getting to show off some of his leadership skills here, delegating authority or delegating tasks to his soldiers. It's a flip side of a coin of Optimus. He's got his own army, and he's a pretty good leader too, despite being a dastardly fellow. I really enjoyed just the military vibe of both sides in this three-parter. They seem very tactical on both sides. Not that much wisecracking going on.
No, and right away, kind of the rank.
Yeah, that's what I like about the Autobots. There's no one who really questions Optimus's authority. You get that on the Decepticon side with Starscream all the time, but it's nice that the Autobots all fall in line and they respect their leader. And you got more teamwork going on here. Ironhide and Bumblebee are going to team up to take care of the river, and love the masterpiece Ironhide toy that actually features that laser. Even though you can't really do that in van mode, it's cool that they included that laser that was included with the original Ironhide. Although that original Ironhide was one of the worst Transformers, I thought.
Yeah, I didn't have them.
Lack of a head and just the gangly proportions. There have been some custom kits that made him look a little more like the cartoon, but yeah, not one of my favorite G1 Transformers.
You could say a lot of bad things about the original G1 toys. I mean, articulation especially.
Oh, yeah. And you got the flying Autobots again. I am glad they got rid of that. It made the aerial bots more special when they were eventually created to try to counter the Decepticons' aerial superiority. And there's a little mention by Cliffjumper of Mirage being a great fighter, even though he hates fighting. And here's a good little exchange of banter between Optimus and Megatron. You can tell they really hate each other. It's not just hero versus villain, but at least Megatron hates Prime. Really despises him. And he doesn't use it very long, but this is one of my favorite Optimus weapons, the Energy Axe.
This is almost a foreshadowing to the movie.
Yeah. Yeah, it goes quite nicely with their final battle. Not a lot of choreography here, but I like it. I like that they're just whacking each other. It's almost like they're just tired of fighting for millions of years, and they don't need to do the flips anymore. They have learned how to be just quick and brutal and efficient. And Megatron basically wins this one. Just smashes him in the head and knocks him down. Oh, I guess Prime recovers here, but I like that they do establish Megatron as extremely powerful, and one of the things I loved about his, I don't know if it was in the tech specs, but it was in those Marvel bios that came out. Megatron has no known weaknesses. And that was always very unsettling, because Prime had a weakness. It was his compassion. But then his opponent, Megatron, no known weaknesses. And I had never encountered that before, where the villain was a superior fighter. And you saw it right there. Optimus Prime got distracted by Spike, and he loses the battle because of it.
Those are really interesting, those Marvel volumes that describe the characters in detail.
Yep. So the Autobots are taking a real drubbing so far. They haven't really owned the Decepticons yet, which is again so unusual for a 80s cartoon, and even by today's standards. I mean, they're more like the rebels from Star Wars. They just are hanging by the skin of their teeth. And there you see Jazz using his grappling hook again. So I don't know if Spike actually does anything here. I guess he moves one rock.
Uh-huh.
You know, it's as you can see, it turns out Hound is saving him more than he saved Hound. But he tries. Give him points for effort. Some of the animation and the scale is a little wonky in these. Like sometimes Spike looks half as big as an Autobot.
Yeah, the scale's always off. I mean, Starscream should be taller than anyone, I think.
Yeah. And I love Huffer. He's one of my favorite G1 Autobots because he's so not heroic. He's pessimistic. He's the perfect foil to Optimus. It's too bad they didn't have more interaction, but you got Optimus Prime, who's the eternal optimist, and then Huffer, who is just the ultimate naysayer. It'll never work. Big waste of time.
Great comic relief there.
And Prime isn't the type of guy who will put him in his place. Prime just has too much patience and wisdom and grace for that. So I love that there's guys like Brawn who will say, "Shut up, put a sock in it." You got really rambunctious Autobots who will, give them a piece of their mind. And you need that. Conflict is key for any good story. And a lot of the best stories, the heroes are bickering with each other. But they never cross a line to the point of animosity or treachery. That's for the Decepticons. I just love the dialogue between Megatron and Starscream, always bickering. Megatron, I guess his patience is tested to some extent. It mirrors Optimus having to deal with Starscream. I think he just puts up with Starscream because, he's a valuable warrior, but you do get the feeling that at any moment Megatron will just blast his head off.
It's a good lesson for kids. If you respect the leader, you give him that respect, and then you'll get it back.
Mm-hmm. I like that the Autobots, since they're new to the planet and they've expressed some interest in learning about it, they're not just here to suck it dry of energy like the Decepticons. I like that they're given these moments to enjoy nature, like Hound loves going for drives, and you see Trailbreaker just sitting there while Spike and Sparkplug are having a coffee or a tea. Just enjoying a change from Cybertron.
A lot of reflectors there.
Oh, yeah. I think, I was going to say the number of Seekers also changes. They got a lot of Seekers as well. Never explained if those guys can clone themselves or if they just all arrived in the ship. So even in scenes like this, we're getting characterization, which is why I think this cartoon and G.I. Joe like it were so good, because they're able to squeeze in little moments of characterization even in action scenes where Trailbreaker is telling you, "I'm not built for speed." So we're establishing this guy's tough. He's not fast, but he's tough. So we're ramping up the tension here until the brothers show up. And these guys are here to take care of business. And even here, like I said, even in an action scene, we're doing some characterization here, establishing Sunstreaker as very vain. He's worried about his paint job. There's the rubies. Are they in Burma now? The ruby mines of Burma.
Now Myanmar.
Oh, yeah. Interesting how you can just squeeze some crystals and it's almost like they're kyber crystals or something. Yeah. Decepticons have all the tricks. They know how to draw energy out of things that we didn't even know had energy in them. And so this is leading up to yet another spanking Optimus is about to take. So the previous episode ended with Megatron getting away and Optimus in a precarious situation, and I'll never forget this episode. You'd think that the Autobots would get even, the Decepticons would finally get their comeuppance in episode 2, but that's not what happens here. First, we're going to send in Bumblebee and Sparkplug to try to do it espionage style. And I like that Bumblebee is he's the spy of the group. It's not just all soldiers. The little guy is the spy. He's the one that sneaks in quietly and tries not to fight. Sparkplug is already invested in this battle. He's willing to step up and fight against the Decepticons to defend his own planet. He's not content to just be a damsel in distress. And we're shown here just how ineffective Bumblebee is as a fighter in a few moments here. So he does complete his mission and he sets the explosives. So the problem is getting out. And they get, they get spanked. So this was really shocking to me as a kid, where Optimus says he's going to go and he's going to use Roller. It's one of the few times he ever uses Roller in the show. So he drives up there and releases Roller, which is, it's not really a separate character unto itself. It's described as a component of Optimus, but it does sort of have like an R2-D2 personality to it.
Not to mention the Star Wars sounds that they used all over this cartoon.
Yeah, the beeping. You hear some. Yep. Yeah, that's totally R2-D2. And boom! I can remember watching this as a kid and going, seeing the image of the blast hitting Optimus and going, what the? And you better believe that once I got my hands on an Optimus Prime, it took a while because he was rare, but once I got one, I was carefully, slowly rolling my Optimus down the bed and down a couch to recreate that big blast. You had to be careful, though, or you'd break those smokestacks. But that's 2 episodes in a row now, and the second one, he especially is in a precarious position when it ends. So I was hooked, because it's kind of like professional wrestling. When the good guy keeps getting beaten up and beaten up by the villain, you just want to see that villain get his comeuppance. So that's why I think I became such a big Transformers fan. I just wanted to see Optimus finally get the job done.
Yeah, I like the continuity between episodes. It's not just a one-shot, and I like the cliffhangers.
That's how you tell a good story, too. You got to be patient sometimes. It has to be a slow burn. I guess, compared to animation of today and maybe to some animation of the 80s, this was more of a slow burn, despite being a 3-parter, not a 5-parter. It took its time waiting to give you that Autobot victory at the end of episode 3. So once again, kind of a melancholy episode. Couple lighter moments, couple funny lines, but for the most part, Optimus gets his transistors handed to him on Sherman Dam and then takes that big blast. And you don't know what happened with Bumblebee and Sparkplug and Roller, so it's especially up in the air. The drama is very high. And that is Transformers More Than Meets the Eye Episode 2. So, what are your overall impressions of the second episode ever of G1 Transformers?
Yeah, I really like how they showed the special abilities of all the Transformers. That's really fun, and yeah, it just makes you want to go out and buy those toys and try those out for yourself.
Yeah, I'm glad, even though he didn't really do much, I'm glad that we got a glimpse of Roller too. He's used so infrequently in the cartoon, same with Optimus's trailer. It's mostly just Optimus throughout the show, but as a kid, I loved all three components. That was one of the coolest toys ever, being able to open up the trailer and have a headquarters and have Roller scooting around the house. So anytime I get to see Roller in one of these episodes, that's a bonus too. So that is Transformers Episode 2. Adam, want to thank you again for joining me.
Glad to be here, and again, Patreon subscribers, come join us.
Yeah, absolutely. If you want to support the channel on Patreon, the link is in the show notes. There's a couple of different ranks there. You can contribute $1 a month if you want. You can be a green shirt. All of the ranks are G.I. Joe themed since I'm a big Joe fan, and we have other ranks available. $2 will get you a sergeant rank, and you can join in with future Patreon Hangouts. You can get sneak peeks at upcoming videos before they're posted publicly on YouTube. If you are a sergeant or higher, that's $5 or more. And then if you want to go the general level of $10, you can request what you want to see reviewed in the 80s Toy Museum. So any figure or vehicle or playset, if you want to see a specific review on that particular toy from the 80s Toy Museum, you say jump and I say how high. And then the highest rank is the Ninja, which if you're up for it, you get a one-on-one interview with me on Skype, which will be posted on the YouTube channel. Really want to thank everybody who's supporting the channel on Patreon. It's really reinvigorated, my passion for the channel, and I love the support. I love hearing from you guys. So thanks for all the support, and I'll do my best to keep up the fun on the channel. So once again, thanks everybody for listening. Thanks to Adam for joining. If you got a comment about the second episode of Transformers, scroll down and go to town. And to join the tribe, hit subscribe. Nerdmas Day.